welcome to Libertarian Counterpoint. I am your host, James Just. With me today is Mr. Alexander Vasquez himself from Capital City Radio, El Capitan. Alexander, thank you for joining us this week.
Thank you for asking me. I love coming on here.
And I got the intro in reverse order, by the way. It's supposed to be El Capitan himself, Mr. Alexander Vasquez
there you
from
go. You got it right.
Capital City Radio. You know, we do this a long time. Even us make mistakes.
Yeah. So, this is where you can make them.
This is where we get to make them. This is where we get to make them. All right, Alexander, we're going to start right off here. Public schools in Arizona, they are closing. I think a quarter of the public schools have closed in Arizona because their students are going to better options. Essentially, is what's happening is the
there we go.
Is the public school voucher program is thriving.
Yeah, well, now you know what parental rights looks like, okay? Because parents now have an opportunity to pull their kids out of a bad public school. If they put them in a private school or a charter school or a religious school, now they can use vouchers to get them in. And you can't blame them because a parent's first responsibility is to make sure that their children are well educated or find a good school to educate them, because really the parents are the first teachers. So I'm glad to see it, because this is going to be a good example of what's going to happen here in California eventually, because we have schools that are closing also, but due to people moving out of the state, different districts, the school just sucks. Okay, so they just say, I'm pulling my kid out. I don't want them living with me until they're 45 and I'm almost in hospice care. No, I want my kids to be productive, educated, and competitive.
Yeah, well, one of the few benefits of the COVID regime, right?
Yes.
Was that it put a lot of parents understood that their child's education is actually on their shoulders. Right? That
yeah.
They can tell you, the school districts, they can tell you everything they want, the teachers can tell you everything they want, but ultimately you as a parent are responsible because the school can close.
Yes.
At any time. And so, you know, one of the things about voucher programs is if the public schools were of high quality, they would take their vouchers to the public schools.
Yes, they would.
I mean, it's not like these parents want to go to necessarily a charter school or want to necessarily go to a private school. They just want to send the child to the best school they can find.
Right.
That's works for them, right? Whether it's on the way to work or whether it's close to their house. You know, all those various reasons that people choose why to send to school. But a decent school is the very first thing. Right? Even if the school is across the street from you, if it's a crappy school, you're not going to want to send your kid there.
No, you're not. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that, or they don't know, is that even in real estate, the first thing any real estate agent will tell you when they have a potential customer to buy a house, what are the schools like? Because if the schools aren't good, they're not going to buy the house. And then you have demographics, if they're low-income neighborhoods or minority communities, then those parents have an equal right, just as the well-to-do parents, to say, this school isn't working, this school is not educating my kid. I will raise my kid, but you're to educate him. And if I have to pull them out, then I should, because guess what? Those vouchers are still taxpayers' money. The school didn't print this money. Okay, it still belongs to the people. It still belongs to property owners. So I'm glad finally that parents are pushing their weight around. They're telling the school district, we're the ones who make it happen. Because you get paid by the head. And my kid is going to go to your school, you better educate it. Not, I'm pulling it.
Yeah, it's changing the relationship between parents and schools back
Yes.
to what it should be, is
Yes.
where parents are leading these things. But you know, a little bit of devil's advocate, one of the things that they say is that the public schools will be left with the children with parents who don't care. Those are the people who end up at the schools, and so they're going to have a harder time. But they also have better resources, and they'll also be able to better focus on just that type of child, right?
Right.
Instead of trying to educate the generic child, they now get to learn how to educate the most difficult children to educate. That's a specialty. That's valuable. And so let somebody else do the easy ones, and you take on the hard ones.
Right.
And the public schools, even in voucher programs, the public schools get some of that money. They still get some of that money.
The money's still there.
Yeah. Well, even the vouchers, it's not the full It's not the full. Let's say they spend $15,000
Right.
a year on a kid. The voucher's worth like 12.
Right.
And so the school district still gets $3,000 or
Right.
some proportion of that. So that means more money to spend on those kids that are left.
I agree.
And so it's a chance for our public schools to kind of reinstitute themselves, look themselves in hard look in the mirror. If people are fleeing our schools, we're doing something wrong, and we have to change.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
there's a lot of there's a lot of variables to this. Maybe bad parents, bad teachers, bad principals, bad administration, bad trustee boards. Okay, maybe the unions are involved in this too. So there's a lot of variables to it, but they all understand one thing: math, money.
Well, and parents understand one thing: my child isn't getting educated.
No.
And so if you're a parent and your child isn't getting properly educated, it's your duty to find a way to properly educate them. If that means educating them fully at home, while you send them to some crappy school, you've got to do that. But if you've got options, and every parent should have options, and I think that's what's
And they
important.
have a duty.
And a duty. Well, we're talking about options and duties. Richard Fields has something to say about Trump administration's EPA. So let's see what Richard Fields has to say.
I
this
always
week.
like Richard.
Hi, this is Richard Fields with this week's report from the fields. Late last month, the Trump administration's EPA administrator, Lee Zeldin, announced his proposal to rescind the 2009 EPA endangerment finding. This was the EPA finding under the Obama administration that classifies carbon dioxide and 5 other gases as pollutants. This could be huge if it goes through. Predictably, every environmental organization is screaming bloody murder. It will almost certainly eventually go to the United States Supreme Court, and who knows how they will eventually rule. Zeldin is not making the scientific argument in his proposal to rescind, so the debate may not turn on the argument that CO2 is arguably a harmless part of Earth's natural atmosphere. Indeed, in the prehistoric past, its percentage of the atmosphere has been many times greater. It will not hinge on the unassailable argument that plants need carbon dioxide to grow, and food grows faster with more carbon dioxide. Nor will it hinge on the observable empirical record that atmospheric carbon dioxide is not particularly well coordinated with the burning of fossil fuels. And finally, it will not turn on a legitimate cost-benefit analysis. Is the cost of foregoing the use of fossil fuels an order of magnitude larger than the tiny benefits of having less CO2 in the air? Instead, the argument will be a legal one. Zeldin will argue that the finding was found in a flawed and unorthodox way and ignored the intent of the Clean Air Act. Nevertheless, the impact will be huge. It will completely undermine the legal basis of all the global warming, climate change, since the warming seems to have stopped, laws and regulations. That would include Biden's Green New Deal, California's banning of the sale of internal combustion engines in cars starting in 10 years. It will spoil the wet dreams of every socialist, radical environmentalist, busybody whose real goal is to drive us back to the Stone Age and suffer the human depopulation through starvation that would be entailed. It can be really hard to find something the Trump administration is doing right. This is one of those times. Unfortunately, a new Democratic administration will be able to reverse this rescission. Also, unfortunately, all the things the Trump administration is doing wrong, nativist anti-immigration policies, mercantilist anti-free trade tariff policies, and now nuclear confrontation with Russia over Ukraine, a country most Americans wouldn't have been able to find on a map a few years ago. Well, I guess we'll just have to take the positive developments wherever we can find them. I'm Richard Fields, and that's this week's Report from the Fields. See you again next week.
You know, Alexander, the most disturbing thing of all these kind of stories I find is how much these executive agencies, how much power they have that they really shouldn't, right? They get to just dictate policy,
Right.
when reality is Congress is supposed to be dictating policy and these agencies are supposed to carry it out. But for whatever reason, over the last 30, 40 years, Congress has surrendered this power to the executive branch, and we're paying the price now. In whether you agree or disagree with the EPA, it's in all these other aspects of of where government is interfering, we're on a freaking trampoline, bouncing around like
Right, and
it's insane.
And whether it's Congress or state legislature, they seem to have this great gift of coming up with an idea, and then they make it into law, and then that law becomes a business, and then soon that business becomes a racket, where they start these commissions, and they give them full power to do pretty much whatever they want. And when they do screw up the commission, then they go before a Senate sub-hearing committee to get questioned, so that the person who gave them this power now gets to look good and saying, look what you've done. How come you're doing it this way?
Yeah.
This is not the way we told you to do it.
Yeah, they get to wag their finger. They get a campaign video out of it. Yeah.
Right, and so it's a game to them.
Yeah, it is a game. But this game has
Huge consequences.
huge consequences, because as we know, China has been playing into these climate fears. They've been supporting a lot of these groups, as there's a lot of these environmentalist groups.
Right.
And so, when you have, a cultural, political opponent, however you want, economic opponent,
Right.
however you want to classify China,
Right.
Take your pick. It's when you have them manipulating this, our fears.
Right, and China's very good at manipulating us. For some reason or another, we just buy into everything they say about us, and that's it. No questions asked. All right.
Well, I can explain that one a little bit, Alexander.
Well,
we have raised a generation, maybe two, any generation past mine, that believes that the United States is always the oppressor, and
Right.
so therefore everybody else is the oppressed, and the oppressed are always correct.
Right.
And we have that as a cultural zeitgeist or something, and it creates these really weird conditions where we believe some propaganda while we ignore reality.
Right, right. And a lot of people don't even understand that, and we were talking about that generation, that China is a communist country, but they don't see communism. They may see it on Facebook or TikTok or whatever the hell it is, but they're not studying it. They don't really realize how big China is and how powerful it is. How they have like their little cell phones there, how it runs on certain minerals, okay? And how China has pretty much bought up half of Africa because of all the minerals that they have there. And they've really built colonies for their workers. And but if you want your cell phone, you're gonna have to deal with people who make it.
I know, and it's funny, they complain about the United States and Europeans' colonization while they turned a blind eye to China following in our footsteps. Hey, they learned from us, right? I don't want
Right.
to.
Yeah. They just did it better, let's
not pretend anything.
They got one person calling the shots. We don't.
Which is our benefit, which is to our benefit.
Right.
All right, now we're going to move on, Alexander, because there's a bunch of, we talked about this last week, or was it the week before, about this redistricting issues we've got. And, the Wall Street Journal's editor board is warning to the GOP that the stunt is posed to backfire. But my question is, why do we only talk about when Republicans want to do this kind of nonsense? And let's be clear, this kind of redistricting is nonsense, but gerrymandering has been happening for 100 years, if not more.
Since colonial times.
I mean, just look at any congressional map. Look at California's.
Right.
They show this one in Illinois that they're not even fully connected to each other, right? There's not like a continuous connection. You got a blob here, a blob over there, and a blob over here, and that's a congressional district. So, and this is in Illinois, which is completely run by Democrats. And so this is, when one party or the other wants to manipulate the electoral process, it is fundamentally wrong. But when you say, well, they're going to do it, so I'm going to do it, so now you're both wrong.
Right.
And so now neither one of you, you're both proving that we're not moral. And this stunt is posed to backfire, but it's going to backfire on us because it's just going to entrench the duopoly.
Here in California.
Well, not just here in California.
Everywhere. In
Texas, it's going to entrench. When you create a single party state, either in California, Texas, New York, Illinois, it becomes a political machine state, and then the people lose out.
Yeah, because the one party state usually gets very brave, okay, and arrogant. And so this happened back in the early 2008, 2010, something like that, where the people actually said, we don't want you guys, the legislature, coming up with these gerrymandered districts, because they go like this. Okay,
Yeah.
they're supposed to go like this in a way, but we took the power away from them.
Well, except we didn't.
Well, no, not now. Now that's being.
Well, no, even in California, that redistricting commission, it
Yeah.
operates under the conditions provided to them by the legislature. So
Right.
they have no power to, they can blow their own nose is essentially all that commission can do.
Right, but the commission was actually something that the people wanted to do.
Yes, in theory, but in practice,
in
it
practice,
works. It works.
It's like in everything else.
It just
okay.
gets the Democrat activists to
Right,
run the thing.
and so,
It's the same
but the
problem.
people thought they were taking this power away from them, and now is about to take their power away from them again, all right? And I think this is gonna be one big mess. But yeah, I want to stay in power.
Yeah.
The people that have been voted in want to stay in power, and so the only way you can do that is what? The power of the people is their vote.
Yeah,
And so if you get, so if you start moving them around like checkers, then we may just get exactly what we deserve.
Yeah, well, we are going to get exactly
Right.
what we deserve, right? We're going to protect democracy by creating a single party state, and that's just kind of, right? That's not protecting democracy, that's protecting your party.
Yeah.
And whether it's Republican, whether it's
And your
Democrat.
seat.
And Libertarians, we've been through this,
Right.
you know, Ringer. Like we made a major party status in New York, so they just changed how you define major party status.
Right.
And, so, and this is all Democrats. So when one of these people are trying to, my suggestion to you is when somebody's trying to claim some moral authority on this, don't buy it because they don't have any.
No.
No, there is none. Okay, so something that's kind of connected is the outrage grows in Midwest as political crisis. They're calling it a political crisis. What is happening is some Midwest governors are pulling out of the Governors Association. You know,
Right.
the theoretically independent Governors Association.
Yeah.
There's 27 Republican governors, 23 Democrat governors, and so
They don't like each other.
so the far left Democrat governors are now mad,
Right.
because they can't get their way. And this is, for anybody who pays attention to this kind of stuff, and most people don't because you don't have to.
Right.
It's supposed to be a nonpartisan organization, but the party with more governors is the one who's going to lead the organization. It just is.
Right.
And so, I don't know. I have a hard time calling this kind of thing that some governor is going to pull out of this Governors Association to be a political crisis.
Right.
It's just stop it.
You,
Everything's not a political crisis.
No,
Whether it's arguing over gerrymandering, whether it's having a party that you disagree with in power, not everything is a crisis. It's just another day in the.
It's a day in the life in the politician, and a day of life in the government, and a day in life in our country.
Well, in a sense, it's a day in the life of democracy. Democracy
Right.
is not pretty. Democracy is ugly.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of chaos in democracy.
Well, and a lot of people kind of forget that we're actually a republic, because democracy is part of a process to get to the republic side of it. But when Trump became president, he was talking about states' rights, states' rights, states' rights. Well, I think what happened has also gotten to these governors' heads, whether you're Republican or Democrat. Well, now this state's mine. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to do with it. And if I have a Democrat assembly and I have a Democrat state senate, even the more better. Okay. I don't care what the feds do, but don't pull our money away, because if you do that, then we're screwed. So it's this, the governors from different states don't like each other because they're competing now, where before they didn't really have to. Because the feds always, Washington, D.C. always took care of them some way, somehow.
Well,
but now that's
competing
changing.
And now they're competing for citizens, right? Because
Yes.
people like California are fleeing. So now you've got other states saying, hey, let's get some of those California's fleeing residents here.
And we already lost 2 congressional seats, I believe,
Yeah.
in Southern California, because everybody left in that one area. So this is like Monopoly, where everyone's just moving wherever the hell they want to, move to, and But what gets me about this is that you have maybe more Republicans leaving California, and they're going to Florida or Texas. Then you have more Democrats leaving California, and they're going to Colorado or Oregon or Washington. But it's like, keep your mess over there. We got it nice here. That's why you're coming here, and we
Yeah.
don't want you jacking it up.
Yeah, don't bring the policies you voted for here.
Don't bring what you brought in California.
Yeah.
Don't bring that.
All right,
at
so we're talking about absurd political power. So back in bloody old England, you know, they have this thing called the
our former country.
Our former country. They have this thing called the Online Safety Act, allegedly to protect the children. You know, it's for the children.
Everything's for the children.
Everything's for the children.
Except for the children.
And it turns out there's some pretty ludicrous things that have happened because of this bill, right? Now this bill is, you've got to like, if you want to access adult content, shall we say, you've got to like upload your or even Netflix, right? You've got to upload your ID, and there's all kind of checks you've got to go through. But if you don't have your ID, you can no longer go, if we can see the next screen here in there for you, Daniel. If you don't have an ID, you can't go to the no fap thing, which means you can't go to the anti-masturbation thing on Reddit because it's being blocked.
Really?
So you also, war news and debates about sexual predators, you can't see that without an ID. Historical art, you know, if it happens to have some, you know, sexual innuendos or connotations. Yeah.
Can't do it.
Those old Greek statues.
Right.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
No, you can't see those.
Niet.
You have to, if you want to listen to music on a streaming service, you've got to scan your face as a selfie. You know, man couldn't get his face tattoos couldn't fool the algorithm. The algorithm, the selfie scan things wouldn't work because of his face tattoos. So he couldn't access the internet. You know, a teen appropriate experience for everybody on Discord, which don't even know what a teen appropriate experience is.
When it comes to teens, there's nothing appropriate about them. That's why they're experiencing this stuff.
But what that actually means
is what gets them in trouble.
It's like the moral majority back in the 80s has now gotten into online in the UK, right? You get the subreddits are sabotaged, sex workers have been shadow banning, gamers get carded. You know, you want to go play a game, you want to go buy a game on Steam and log into an online thing? Not if you're not 18. And then a thread about things being blocked on Reddit was blocked.
You know, there's two important things here. One is, now everybody should know why we got the hell out of Britain. We wanted our own country because of stuff like this. Old King George, was it King George? Yeah. Okay, him. Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah, just in a pin, all right? And how many people are so attached to their phone where this is actually important to them? Okay, historic art off limits. The hell with going to your phone on art. Why don't you go to a museum or an art gallery? Yeah, or go find a job and you can buy art from somebody. You know, the physical stuff.
Yeah, I know, but if you're blocking art, this whole thing is nonsense, right?
It is.
They're not going to protect, because what's the one thing teenagers know how to do is get around rules. So the teenagers will get around it. It's the people who are 40, 50, 60 years old who want to just access normal things are now the ones who are going to have trouble. It's not even going to accomplish their goal. All right, Alexander, we got a few minutes left, so I want to get this thing about Europe.
Yeah.
So Europe's great power, right? The EU, the dream of the EU.
The blue guys.
Yeah, it's in tatters. And some of us saw this a long ways. You cannot have a bureaucratic state.
No.
It will eventually fail. It just will. So the dream is in tatters, but those rejoiners down there in Britain, you know, the guys who were against Brexit, they seem to think that the EU is still the way to go, despite the fact that the EU has been stagnant, despite the fact that the EU is even more authoritarian than the UK, which if you want to find that hard to believe.
Right.
This
is where, when I hear Europe always saying, we can do this together in Europe. You have England, you have France, you have Italy, you have Germany, you have all these countries, right? Speak different languages, and different customs, and look at the world differently. And yet they're trying to blend them all together. And when this EU thing came up, like you and I, we knew this was going to be a disaster. It's like trying to get all your family at Thanksgiving Day dinner, okay? Somebody's going to hate something. Yeah, well, and this is what this is.
Yeah, the United States was able to pull it off because we started that way.
Right.
We weren't trying to kind of cram a bunch of established cultures, for some of them for thousands of years, right, and cram them together. But I find what's interesting about the EU is where the vibrance is. You know, if you go to the Western EU, there's no vibrant culture. They're all looking.
They're all
in the past.
Slavic.
It's all in the past. But you go to the eastern part of the EU,
Right.
or the northeastern part of the
Right.
EU. You know, you go to Poland
Right.
and the stands, and those people have thriving cultures. They have thriving, you know, economies. They
Right.
have thriving. The substance to their culture
Right.
is still thriving,
And it's still still
and
history.
they're still looking forward. Unlike EU is always
Right.
looking back. The rest
Right.
of the EU, you know, France, Germany, they're always looking backwards. Even in
Right.
their architecture, they're looking backwards.
Yes.
Rather than looking forwards.
Yeah.
And
It is because of the way Europe is structured. It's like, okay, Finland, like who wants to go to Finland? I mean, there's nothing there. All right, it's a nice little town, nice and clean. It's like a big Mayberry, but always cold, that kind of stuff. But you go to places like Poland, where they have history, they've had battles, they've fought in World War II, they know what oppression is like, and they just keep on going. All right, because they have that certain pride and history that they just, even though they're part of the EU, we're Polish. This is Poland. This is us still.
yeah.
But we're still part of this, you know, Manson family type thinking that, you know, we're all together here. Okay?
Yeah, well,
nobody says anything.
Yeah, Poland and the EU have their own issues, but at least you know there's some. At least those eastern states of the EU are
Right.
willing to stand up to the
And
the
they
Western
should.
side. Yeah.
And they should.
This notion that we've had over in the EU, where you just kind of silently sit by while the bureaucracy dictates to your life.
Yeah, and you never would see this in South America. Okay, never. And the Asian countries, you will never see that. It was only in Europe, you know, that they came up with this idea. Let's all sink together, because we're not floating together. Let's just all sink together.
And that's an interesting thing. So why would that be? I mean, does Europe feel that guilty about their past, about their history, that
Their past is no different and no
than
worse than anybody else's.
But they seem to have a guilt trip about it.
They
right?
have a European guilt trip. That's pretty much it. They're trying to erase something that they can't erase. It's already happened. Just admit it, forget about it, and move on.
Well, you don't want to forget about it, but there's a difference between learning from history and remembering history and being trapped by it.
Yeah, and
seems,
they want to ignore it.
And it seems to me that we've been trapped by it.
Right.
You know, the United States. We have a growing problem here in the United States.
And you see this picture right here. They look like they're pretty young. All right. Freakish looking, they probably didn't even know who Ozzy Osbourne was. Okay.
Probably not.
No,
probably not.
they want to look like Ozzy Osbourne, but they probably don't even know who Ozzy Osbourne is. But yet they still have this thing about bringing up the dead.
Alexander, we are out of here tonight.
Right.
Thank you for watching. Thank the crew for in there for working so hard. Thank the students for putting up our lighting tonight. We greatly appreciate it. Have a good night. Please remember to love.